A few days after your last child moves out, the house looks almost exactly the same. The bedroom door is still open. Their old coffee mug is still in the cabinet. There's a sweatshirt hanging over a chair that nobody has bothered to move. And then you catch yourself doing something strange. You're standing in the grocery store reaching for the cereal they always ate. You put it in the cart automatically. Only halfway down the aisle do you remember, nobody at home eats that cereal anymore. Maybe you still glance at the clock around 10 p.m., expecting to hear the garage door. Maybe you start making dinner the way you always did and realize you're cooking for 4 people when only 2 are coming to the table. Your child is fine. They got the apartment, they started college, they took the job, they moved in with someone. Whatever the reason, this was supposed to happen. You raised them to leave. So why does their leaving sometimes feel like something inside you left too? We usually describe this as empty nest syndrome, or simply say, of course you miss your kids. And yes, you probably do. But for some Gen X parents, missing the person is only one part of the story. Because when your child walks out the door, you don't just lose noise in the hallway. You lose hundreds of tiny responsibilities that once told your brain exactly who you needed to be. For 20 or 30 years, your days may have been organized around questions. Did they get home safely? Did someone pick them up from practice? Do we have enough groceries? Did they fill out the financial aid paperwork? Why is the check engine light on in their car? Are they upset? Do they need advice? Do they need money? Do they need you? These tasks can be exhausting, but they also provide something psychologically powerful: structure. You know what the next problem is. You know what your role is. And after years of solving those problems, something else happens. You become good at it. You become the person who knows how to keep things moving. You know how to calm a crisis, stretch a budget, make a phone call, fix dinner, organize the calendar, read the mood in the room, and somehow get everyone where they need to be. Psychologists sometimes use the term self-efficacy to describe your sense that you can handle what life puts in front of you. Parenting can reinforce that feeling constantly. Every problem solved becomes a tiny message. I can do this. I know what to do. I matter here. Then one day, your child calls less often, and that is exactly what you wanted. They figured out the insurance problem themselves. They made the appointment. They cooked dinner without asking how long the chicken goes in the oven. They had a bad day and called a friend instead of you. You succeeded, and strangely, success can feel a little like rejection. Not because your child is rejecting you, but because the role you performed so intensely is no longer being requested in the same way. That's one of the quieter contradictions of raising independent adults. You spend decades teaching someone not to need you. Then you have to emotionally survive the moment when the lesson works. And for some parents, that is where the deeper identity shock begins. Because if you perform a role long enough, it stops feeling like a role. It starts feeling like you. Think about how often parents introduce themselves through their children. The school they attend, the sport they play, the college application, the graduation, the new job, the wedding plans. For years, family life gives you ready-made stories, schedules, goals, and emergencies. Then someone asks a simple question: so what do you like to do? And you realize you haven't seriously thought about that in years. This can be especially disorienting for Gen X parents who spent much of adulthood balancing work, mortgages, carpools, youth sports, college costs, and the expectation that competent adults simply handle whatever needs handling. There was always something to do. Then suddenly, Saturday morning is empty. No tournament, no pickup, no school event, no teenager sleeping until noon. You can travel, you can eat dinner at 9, you can turn the bedroom into an office. You can finally do whatever you want, and that freedom may feel incredible. But freedom has a hidden requirement. You have to know what you want. That question can be surprisingly difficult when external responsibilities have been making most of your decisions for decades. And sometimes, the silence exposes things that parenting didn't create but helped keep out of focus. Maybe you and your spouse became excellent coworkers. You coordinated schedules, bills, homework, holidays, doctors, college tours, and family emergencies. But now you sit across from each other at a restaurant and realize that without talking about the kids, you're not entirely sure what to talk about. Maybe friendships disappeared quietly. Maybe a creative interest was postponed so many times that you stopped calling it an interest. Maybe your body changed. Maybe retirement suddenly feels less theoretical. Maybe you look at the next 20 years and realize there is no school calendar telling you what the next milestone is supposed to be. The empty nest didn't necessarily create these questions. Sometimes it simply removed the noise that kept you from hearing them. But there's another side to this. Not every parent experiences the silence as loss. For some people, it feels like oxygen. They reconnect with friends, they sleep better, they travel, they start exercising again, they take a class. They remember music they loved before every car ride belonged to somebody else. They discover that loving their children deeply and enjoying their absence from the house are not opposites. And even the same person can feel both things. Relief on Monday, grief on Tuesday, pride when the child handles a problem independently, a strange ache when they realize the child didn't call. That ambivalence matters, because otherwise it's easy to misread what happens next. One parent may call their adult child every Sunday because they genuinely enjoy the conversation. Another may make the exact same call but spend the entire afternoon anxious if the child doesn't answer. From the outside, the behavior looks identical. Inside, it serves a completely different purpose. One is connection, the other may also be a way of regulating fear. And this is where a useful question appears. Do you want to stay close to your child, or do you need their dependence in order to feel secure? That question isn't an accusation, because most parents will experience both impulses at different moments. But noticing the difference can change the relationship. When your sense of worth has been reinforced for years by being useful, not being needed can feel strangely threatening. So you may offer advice nobody asked for. You may call more often. You may solve problems before your child has the chance to solve them. You may interpret independence as distance. Sometimes what looks like control from the outside is an attempt to preserve a familiar identity on the inside. I'm still the one who takes care of things. But there is another possibility. You can remain a parent without remaining the manager of your child's life. And that transition may be one of the last difficult tasks of active parenting. Not teaching them how to leave. Learning who you are after they do. That doesn't mean replacing your children with hobbies. It doesn't mean pretending you don't miss them. It doesn't mean forcing yourself to celebrate every quiet room. It means gradually allowing your identity to become larger than one role. Maybe you call an old friend. Maybe you finally learn something you were always curious about. Maybe you take better care of your health. Maybe you and your partner have to meet each other again as two people instead of two people running a household. Maybe you simply notice the next time you feel unnecessary and resist the urge to immediately make yourself useful. Sit with the feeling for a moment, because underneath "nobody needs me today" may be a much bigger question. If nobody needs me today, can I still believe my life has value? That may be the real shock hidden inside the empty nest. The bedroom isn't the only thing that became empty. A space opened inside the identity you spent decades building. And maybe that space isn't evidence that something has gone wrong. Maybe it's evidence that something worked. Your child built a life outside your home. Now you have to build a life that isn't organized entirely around theirs. So the next time you find yourself standing in the grocery store holding that cereal nobody eats anymore, the moment may mean more than simple nostalgia. It might be your old life running on muscle memory. A version of you still expecting someone to come home. You can miss that version. You can be proud of what it accomplished, but you don't have to keep living inside it, because perhaps the final lesson of raising someone to become independent is discovering that eventually you have to become independent from being needed too. If this felt familiar, share what changed for you when your kids left home. And if you like exploring the psychology hidden inside ordinary moments, subscribe.